with some numbers, 700 humanitarian missions in 2.5 years. I can promise you that a lot of elite units and operational units cannot reach those operations. And pay attention, I'm calling a humanitarian military operation because it was a full military operation going to an hostile border. We had to treat it like a military operation, so 700 of them. In Israel, 6,000 Syrian has been treated. The life, 99% of them, the life has been saved, from babies, children, mothers, and fathers, boys and girls.
Welcome to this episode of Shoulder to Shoulder, a podcast where a pastor and a rabbi get to the heart of issues that matter to people of faith. I'm Pastor Doug Reed, here with my friend, Rabbi Pesach Wolicki, and on this episode, we'll be having a conversation with Lieutenant Colonel Ayal Dror of the IDF and founder of the Good Neighbor Project. Before we jump into our conversation, please like our Facebook page and join our Facebook group, the Shoulder to Shoulder Community, where you can interact with Pesach and me all week long. The best way to support this podcast is to go on over to Patreon and subscribe to our Shoulder to Shoulder page for just $10 a month. You're helping us bring this message of shoulder to shoulder to more and more people all around the world. As a thank you for your $10 subscription, you'll get exclusive access to chapter by chapter Bible study beginning in Genesis chapter 1 from Rabbi Pesach and myself. So go on over to Patreon, subscribe to Shoulder for just $10 a month. We're grateful for our sponsor, Israel 365 News, which is the place for you to go and get your news and information before going to anyone else. Go on over to Israel365news.com to check out some of their articles and be sure to read Rabbi Pesach and my columns. Pesach, each and every week, Israel 365 has incredible products and initiatives that they are supporting. What are we supporting today?
At Israel 365, we don't just talk about standing with Israel. We give people around the world tangible and meaningful ways to do it. We fight anti-Semitism. We advocate for Israel. We educate our audience, both biblically and in terms of what's going on in Israel and the Middle East. We work to get the truth out about Israel in front of more and more people. We're educating Christians around the world, bringing young leaders to Israel to experience the land of Israel and the people of Israel for themselves. And through Israel 365 charity, we care for widows, orphans, Israel's heroes, and families who need our help. So if you believe in this work and want to stand with Israel in a tangible way, I invite you to support Israel 365 today. Just visit Israel365/give. That's Israel365/give. We're going to put the link in the description of this video. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll put it in the description of the podcast as well. So please go ahead and support Israel 365. And Doug, I also want to just add in, I just mentioned bringing young leadership to Israel, and Israel 365 has done a number of young leadership trips. Eagle's Wings just did a large young leadership trip. I think there were about 100 participants on it. And in collaboration with Israel 365, they spent a Shabbat in the city of Efrat, where rather than having one big Shabbat dinner together, these young Christian leaders who were on this Eagle's Wings trip were divided up, a few to each home, among, I think, something like 30 or 40 different homes in the neighborhood of Efrat, and they apparently had an amazing time at Shabbat dinner in the Efrat community. And the hosts were very impacted by these young Christian students and leaders. And we got feedback from the hosts saying that they were just blown away. For a lot of them, was their first real exposure, to Christian Zionists, to Christian supporters of Israel, and hosting them for a Shabbat meal was really, it was really magical. I don't know what you guys heard on your end, but it was a smash hit from our side.
I have heard nothing but good things. Everybody loved the dynamic of it. On our trips, as you know, many times we're bringing hundreds of people. It's multiple buses. And to try and do Shabbat in the dining hall at the hotel is not all that. It's not the same as going into a home and a small group of people and experiencing the intimacy, the family, the beauty that really is Shabbat. And so that experiment of going and breaking up into small homes with Israel 365 taking kind of the lead on that evening, I've heard nothing but good things. Everybody seems to really like that model, and going into Efrat is really special. That's actually where you and I first met 10 years ago in Efrat, in the synagogue there, doing Bible study with 30 pastors for the first time. So I love that. And there's lots going on in Israel right now. You have election coming up. I'm hearing lots of buzz around the Israeli election. Obviously, there's never any foreign influence on Israeli elections, just Israel influencing everyone else's election. So what's going on right now? Give us the kind of lay of the land for the Israeli election that's coming up this fall.
Well, it's definitely getting exciting. It's definitely getting fun. Today, actually, the day we're recording this on Monday, is the day of the Likud primaries. Now, not all parties in Israel have primaries. A number of the parties in Israel, there's no rule for how parties have to run. A party can just be really one guy naming a bunch of people to his Knesset list, and we have parties like that. But Likud has primaries. There's a number of parties that do, and it's the largest party in Israel. And I happen to be a registered Likud member, which is interesting, even though I didn't vote for them in the last election. But whatever, I'm a registered Likud member, so I voted in the Likud primaries today, which was fun. And it's an interesting primary system. You get to pick 12 names off of, this large list of names, probably well over 100 names on the list that you get to name. And then however people do in the primaries, that's how far up they are on the Knesset list. So there's a number of Knesset members that I know who I've worked with in the past on different projects that were definitely right at the top of my list. But it was, so things are ramping up. In terms of how the election system works and what all the different parties do, I'm going to be putting out videos on the Israel 365 News channel, as well as on this channel, on the Rabbi Pesach Wolicki channel on YouTube, explaining everything going on in the elections. We'll probably talk about it on the podcast some more. But things are ramping up. For most people outside of Israel, everything's always about defense and security and foreign affairs issues. And they don't realize that for Israelis, there's a lot of very serious domestic issues. And especially right now, where even though the biggest issue in the country is defense and security, the problem is, it's not really a problem, it's good for the country. But the problem for electoral politics is that there's consensus pretty much right now. There's not a lot of difference from left to right about how we're supposed to handle Gaza, how we're supposed to handle Hezbollah, how we're supposed to handle Iran. Meaning the criticisms of the government from the left and the right are almost identical at this point. So because there's so much national consensus on those issues, it really opens up the field for some other domestic issues that usually would fall to, into the background because, the security issues are usually the be all and end all of Israeli politics, but they're not anymore. So it's really going to be, I think there's going to be some domestic issues that are going to dominate this election season.
Yeah, outside of Israel, all the buzz that I'm hearing in America all surrounds Bibi Netanyahu. Is Prime Minister Netanyahu good for Israel, not good for Israel, and depending on where you fall on the political spectrum. And everybody thinks that if Bibi is not prime minister, that somehow that's going to change the way Israel deals in Gaza and in the north with Hezbollah, or Iran for that matter. Israel, to your point, is having a consensus on the foreign policy. It's really the internal politics around domestic issues that is separating candidates.
Yeah, and this was really brought home to me in a big way. You might remember this about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, where Israel warned Hezbollah that for any attack that they carry out, Israel is going to strike the Dahya, which is the Hezbollah stronghold, the Hezbollah neighborhood of Beirut. And then President Trump didn't like that. And he kind of called out Netanyahu and made it, and backed us off. The criticism at the time from the left-wing parties and from like Ben Gvir on the far right was identical. The criticism was that if Bibi gives in to Trump, then he's showing weakness. Meaning it wasn't that the left's criticism was like, oh, we shouldn't be in Lebanon at all, or we should negotiate, like what you might expect a left-wing criticism to be. It wasn't. The criticism, and this was a very serious security situation, the criticism on Netanyahu was identical wall to wall. So that just underscores the point. Exactly what you say. People on the left in America think that if they get rid of Netanyahu, they're suddenly going to have someone who's going to capitulate to Western demands on security issues. That's probably not the case. It's just not where Israel is right now.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch it from the outside. As you say all the time, you're a professional fly on the wall in the Christian world and in American politics. I feel that way with Israeli politics because of this podcast and my deep love for Israel and all my friends there. So it's interesting to watch from a distance.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to bring in our guest who I'm very excited about. I met him just not long ago. We both had dinner together with a very interesting group that was visiting from the United States, a group of leaders from the MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement. Were visiting in Israel, and Lieutenant Colonel Dror spoke to the group, and I also spoke to the group, and we were able to meet each other at dinner. And I started looking at this book, and I was blown away. So let me just introduce him. Lieutenant Colonel Ayal Dror lives with his family in Kibbutz Dafna, a northern Israeli border community near Lebanon. He has served in the Israeli Defense Forces for more than 30 years and is an active reserve officer in the Golan Division. He previously founded and commanded Operation Good Neighbor, that we're going to hear a whole lot about, on the Israeli-Syrian border. He's author of Embracing the Enemy, the inside story of Israel's secret humanitarian mission to rescue Syrian civilians from civil war. He lectures in Israel and abroad on security, the Middle East, humanitarian aid, leadership, and communal resilience. He also has an author page at JNS, and so you can go to the website of JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate, and he writes very interesting columns there that I've been reading up on in advance of this podcast. And without further ado, it's my honor to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Ayal Dror. Lieutenant Colonel Dror, welcome to the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Pesach. Thank you very much, Pastor Reed. And before, if I may, before we'll start talk about Syria or Lebanon, I just want to say that I heard your talks about the Shabbat dinner in Efrat, and it makes me feel very, very excited because for me as an Israeli, to see people coming outside Israel and having the time, not like, ordinary tourists that staying at the hotel, mixing, staying with the Israeli population together, having the Shabbat dinner, which is, as everybody knows, it's something very important. Even if you're secular like myself, it's something that is very special. So it's warming my heart. So thank you very much, Pastor Reed, for that. And I hope that in your next delegation, we will be able to host some of them on the northern border in my kibbutz. It will be a different Kabbalat Shabbat, I can promise you, but I'm sure it will be same interesting like it was in Efrat. So thank you for that.
Of course, and we would love that. We'd be honored to connect up in the north. Very, very beautiful area up there. When you get up above the Galilee and the Golan is beautiful.
So, Lieutenant Colonel, you talk about the North and your book, Embracing the Enemy, the inside story of Israel's secret humanitarian mission to rescue Syrian civilians from the civil war. I mean, there's so much we could talk about, and I do want to talk about the current situation in Syria and how it might be, how things might have changed since then. But let's start with this famous mission. If you could just walk our audience through the basics of what this was. I know it took place during the Syrian civil war, and Israel got involved with helping the Syrian civilian population. Give us the story.
So I will try to do it as short as I can, although it might take 45 minutes only just to explain. But no, we will do it very quick. The day was the day of the Syrian civil war. Something important for the audience to understand: Syrian population never met Israelis. Not like neighbors from the Palestinians guys, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon. Syrians never met Israelis, and they were educated for years to hate the state of Israel. We had two difficult wars with them back in 67, 73. However, for 40 years, until 2011, the Israeli-Syrian border was very quiet from security meanings. And then the Syrian civil war started. What we could have seen on the other side of the fence is people literally slaughtering, dying by their own government. And the state of Israel took, I think, a moral and a brave decision. We are not going to let them die without doing anything. We cannot, from the moral position, we cannot stand behind the fence and just wait, because it was a big concern from Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hezbollah. All of them were in this area. So we will not wait only to defend the state of Israel. We must do something for the population. This was the roof of Operation Good Neighbor. It started back in 2013 while Israel decided to open the border for wounded Syrians. For 3 years, under the radar, very classified operation. 3,500 Syrians entered the state of Israel. Their life has been saved in the Israeli hospitals. Something magical had happened. They met the Israeli society. Now, for you, Rabbi Pesach, and I'm sure that for you, Pastor Reed, it's very clear to understand that Israel is a mixed population, a very diverse population. When you're coming to the hospitals, you will hear Arabic, you will see Muslims, you will see Druze, you will see Christian people. For the Syrians, it was a light opening because they didn't know. They heard, they thought it's an apartheid country, only the Jews control, Muslims do not have right. And suddenly, the Muslim guy, the doctor from Turan, which is, in Arabic, a Muslim city, he's the guy that's saving this Syrian guy life. And then they're praying to God together, calling the Fatiha together. And then he realized that Naila, which is a Druze nurse, she's the one that helping him to his recovery. So for them, it was a huge surprise. They were going back to Syria, telling the story. And in 2016, Israel decided we can do much, much more. And to save many more Syrians. This was the time where we started to operate Operation Good Neighbor. My book is based on that story. I was called to duty, and I had one role, to build a unit that will take care to people that until 3 years were supposed to be called our enemies. And we did amazing projects, 700 humanitarian mission. We saved life of dozens of thousands of human beings by providing food or medical assistance or bringing them to Israel to make operation, to make them exams in the hospitals. Fabulous operation, humanitarian one, built bridges with Syrians. And what was even more interesting, we collaborate with Christian organization and Muslim organizations. So basically, I think it's the first time in history while a Jewish guy is commanding Christian, Muslim, Jews, Israelis, all together were working in order to save Muslims.
Wow. Take us back to the beginning of that, the Genesis. I'm sure that there was disagreement. I'm sure that there was wrestling through how to do it. What were some of the concerns in doing it, and how did we overcome them to be able to serve the Syrian population?
So one of the biggest concern was connected to our situation, the sake of our soldiers. Again, the border, and it's important to understand, the border at this time was controlled, or part of it was controlled by ISIS, by Al-Qaeda, by Hezbollah. Now, if I will ask a random guy in Europe, what is the difference? Probably we doesn't even understand that those are Shiite, those are Sunnite. If I will ask what is common, they all swear to kill Jews. So this was some of the type of the rebels, the people with a weapon that was controlling the other side. So every time that we reached the fence, and like I said before, 700 times, it was the understanding that in any sec, a bullet can hit, or an RPG, and we also what those guys knows what to do with RPGs. An RPG can be shot. Weapon is something that in every house you have there. You don't have intel about who's coming. And even if a mom that came with her son, she might have been a suicide bomber that was operated by Al-Qaeda. So this was one of the biggest concerns, what will happen. The second one was what will happen in Israel. Now, we didn't were concerned from that there will be spies. People ask me, oh, so you didn't concern that some of them will be spies? No, they were entering the hospital, going to the hospital and back to Syria. What intelligence they can collect about Israel, everything that you can see in Google Map. However, what will happen during their stay in Israel? What will happen if Israelis will see them? What will happen if they will not allow, they will not want to go back? What will be the threat for their lives? Because, in the Middle East, if you have been called collaborator, it's not a nickname. Probably you will not be able to live the day after. So there was a lot of things to calculate, to take under consideration. There was limitations also for the Syrians. The fact that I want to help you, it doesn't matter that you can get this aid in every platform. For example, in the first operation, they burned food because we realized that they had fatwa that they cannot get food. Only a year after we started to bring them food or clothes. So in the beginning, it was only medical. So it was a lot of things to take under consideration, and a lot of limitations in order to adjust the operation that it will be a successful one. And I will mention one more important thing. We didn't do it for PR. It wasn't like that we brought some Syrians, called all the TV channels, and now made some PR for Israel. Take a look, guys, how good is Israel? We are the only country that saved it. No, we didn't do that. So in order that it will be a successful one, we had to adjust ourselves day by day. We learn night by night what there really needs, what they can do, what they cannot do, what we can do. I will give you, for example, a question. Should I take a 4-stage cancer boy from Syria? I know that I cannot save his life. He will catch a bed that maybe is supposed to be in it an Israeli child. Now, it costs money. Isn't it better to save 100 Syrian children, others in the same amount of money? It's a lot of difficult questions. And, I'm not going to play God. We have the doctors that took this hard decision. It was a lot of discussions about this medical platform. So it was one of a kind of operation with a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, but the most exciting thing that I did in my life.
Yeah. You mentioned that these people might have faced backlash when they went home for being collaborators, for taking help from the Israelis. And of course, you also talked about how they had never met Israelis. There would be a lot of suspicion there. Can you share some maybe incidents or interactions that you had with Syrians that were the result of these suspicions? Like, did any of them actually go back and face backlash? Like, were there problems? Or did you have any who came over and didn't want to go back to Syria? Can you share a few anecdotes of some of the things you experienced with the Syrian people who were brought over?
Yes. So one of the events that I remember was we entered a 9-month-old boy. He needed to do a surgery in his heart. So we took him to Jerusalem. The hospitals in the north.
Oh, a 9-month-old boy. A 9-month-old?
A 9-month, a baby. He was born and it has some problem with his heart. Okay. We did like a project, a cardiological project. There was a couple of very young children. This boy was 9 months, only less than a year. And we took him to Jerusalem. I think it was whether Jerusalem, whether Sheba, I don't remember exactly. Don't catch me for that. The doctors made the operation, and unfortunately, after like a couple of days, he passed away. And we were really concerned, Rabbi Pesach, and I'm sure that you heard the pastor read that in our region, a lot of time, Jews is blamed for everything. And what was like passing on our minds was that when he will go back with his mom to Syria, there will be like posters, the Jews murdered this innocent child, and and then it will reach to the universities in the US, and all those BDS guys will do celebrations from this type. So it was a little bit concerning. And, we didn't know what to do. And I shared my thoughts with my colleague, with the Syrian colleagues, and I said, you know what, bro, I'm also with you. I don't know how the family will react the day that we send them back to Syria arrive. And in the morning, I got a phone call from my colleague, and he told me, you know something? The mother of the baby, which came with him, told her husband, because we also, the Syrians, we were also very concerned from the reaction and whether it will be like, we call it in Hebrew, balagan, it will be a mess now in this village. And the mom said, whether the boy will live or die, it's in the hand of God. But he got treatment that I wish and pray that every Syrian will get in our homeland in Syria. The Israeli nurses, the Israeli doctors did the best they could have done, and unfortunately God decided to take him. So they send their regards to us, and they ask us to send this to the medical team, that they will know that they are not angry with them and do not blame them. So here you saw the humanity, which is, in the Middle East is something a little bit above politics. Now, kinds of those examples, I had one time that a girl that she was almost dying, she was 9 years old, suffering from heart diabetes. She came from the border and she was almost dying. The doctors claimed that 24 hours later, she wouldn't have been alive. She was treated in the Israeli hospital for 6 months, and before she went back, she drew the flag of Israel. I have still it in my room, and it is in my book. There is the picture of it, and it's written above it the flag of Israel, and written like Wiham, which is a Syrian girl. This was her name, the sign of love, and Abu Yaqub, the father of Jacob. The father of Jacob, or Abu Yaqub, was my Syrian name. So a Syrian girl which dedicated the flag of Israel to an IDF officer that saved her life. Again, those are some moments that maybe reflect a little bit from the relationship that has been. Of course, there is, every night we had something that was making us concerned, something that will make us very proud of being Israelis, being Jews. And with me, there was all the special units of the IDF. They were protecting us. And you see those people, they are fighting today in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon, and you see them almost crying when they are seeing the 9 years old, 10 years old little boys coming in the rain barefoot, and they were like, you understand the meaning, seriously, of being a Jew, being educated for love, not for hate, not to kill anyone, to help for any people that you can, even if you're risking your life. So those moments are incredible, and every night we have a story like that.
That's beautiful. And I love this because I've heard you say before, Pesach, with covenantal return to the land comes covenantal responsibility. I've heard others say being the chosen people of God doesn't mean special. It means responsibility. And I love this narrative right now, this story, because all the news headlines, what everybody's talking about is the war and all of the anecdotes on the left and the right. And this is the beauty of Israel. This is the people that I've met and I see when I'm in the land. It's wonderful to hear these stories. With that being said, Lieutenant Colonel, please tell us, what are the numbers? How many Syrians were saved? What was the success rate of the program? And is it continuing to go today?
So with some numbers, 700 humanitarian missions in 2.5 years. I can promise you that a lot of elite units and operational units cannot reach those operations. And pay attention, I'm calling a humanitarian military operation because it was a full military operation going to an hostile border. We had to treat it like a military operation, so 700 of them. In Israel, 6,000 Syrian has been treated. The life, 99% of them, the life has been saved, from babies, children, mothers, and fathers, boys and girls. In Syria, we built a maternity hospital. We provide them the equipment to build a maternity hospital. Around 1,000 new babies were born. 8,000 Syrians were treated in a field clinic that a Christian organization that operated under my command, the Tipton Family Friendships Unlimited from Louisiana. They operate these amazing facilities. 8,000 Syrians that never met Christian before, they were treated in this field clinic. So this is the numbers of people that I can tell you that we met. However, when you provide the Golan Heights, and you spoke earlier about the Galil and the Golan, so probably and I will clarify for your audience, if you're coming in January, February to the Golan Heights, you need to be a tough guy. You need to bring a coat. It's snowing. Very strong wind, so it's not like a very nice. It might be not a nice adventure there. So when you're providing 300 tons of warm clothes, you are saving a lot of. I cannot calculate it, but it's dozens of thousands. When you provide diesel fuel, over than 1 million liter diesel fuel, that people can warm their houses and make their bread ready, you're saving life. When you're supporting clinics and hospital, you are saving life. So in the region where approximately 250,000 human beings, I think that this way or another, the IDF assistant touch almost every family in this region.
Wow.
And I can tell you that I'm really proud for that.
Lieutenant Colonel, Pastor Doug asked you if the program is still ongoing. I understand from your writings that it's not ongoing. Could you talk about some of the reasons why it was shut down, and why and why we aren't continuing to do things like that today?
So unfortunately, in 2018, the summer of 2018, because of the geopolitical situation or circumstances that involved the Iranian and Russia with the Assad government succeeded to reconquer the area called the Quneitra and the Dara region. This is the two regions that close to the Israeli border. And when they came there, we couldn't have collaborate because our colleagues were disappeared. They were afraid for their lives, and the population were like surrounded to the government. Of course, we advised to the Syrian government, although we are enemies, we want to continue to support your population. You've just came back. You have your country almost been destroyed by yourself, so you need to put a lot of resources in order to rebuild it. Both of us know that Quneitra will not be the first place that you will invest your free Syrian lira, and of course they refused to do that, so unfortunately we had to shut it down. So in Syria, this operation came to its end back in August 2018. By the way, we are talking about the closure of this event. I always say that one day, it's written in my last chapter in the book, our last operation was saving the white helmets people. And like some of my American friends said, if it was another NGO and not the IDF, probably we would have got Nobel Prize, because we saved over than 400 people from certain death. The white helmets, they were the civilian rescue teams. Assad government blamed them because they exposed that he is using chemical weapon. In the last night of the operation, we saved over 400 of them. They crossed to Israel and went to Jordan through the Israeli border. They got all of them got new identities and new lives. The operation shut down. Today, Israel is helping. And I know that you asked me, Rabbi Pesach, about that. So today, Israel is helping a little bit to the Druze population. It's a different environment, different circumstances. We can reach it later on. And I will try to answer the question why Israel is not doing that in other places. Well, Israel is trying to do humanitarian aid almost every place in the world that needed. You will see Israel rescue team in Tokyo, in Haiti, in Tahiti, even in Turkey it happened. When it happened in Syria a couple of years ago, although the hostility, Israel asked permission to send our teams. Of course, the government refused. So wherever it's possible and whenever country need us, because everybody knows now Israel was last month, I think it was in Venezuela or somewhere in South America. Every country that will ask Israel to help, because we have a lot of knowledge with that, Israel will be there. Why we cannot do like the Good Neighbor Project 2 in Lebanon or in Syria or I don't know where, it's a lot of time depends on the government that against us. Operation Good Neighbor was very unique because it wasn't the government on the other side. It was a Syrian civil war. We could have connected directly with the population. And I want to promise you one thing, although I'm not a politician and I'm not the prime minister, if the Lebanese government, for example, will ask Israel now, as part of this MOU, if they will dismantle Hezbollah, which is a big, huge if, I just wrote about it that I do not think so, but if they would ask Israel to provide humanitarian aid to Lebanon, I can promise you that Israel will not say no. This goes back to our values. We are saving life. We are truly believing in saving life. And as an Israeli, as a Jew, and I will say it again and again, as a secular Jew, it is not a question of whether you are religious or not. This is what we are. This is how we have been educated to save life. Life is important, and there is a sentence in the Torah that the person that, or in the Mekorot, that the person that saved one life is like saving the whole world. We're truly believing that. This was what guided us on Operation Good Neighbor, and this is what guides us any place that we are bringing humanitarian aid to the world.
You've had the privilege of working between faiths, and a lot of the dialogue around Israel is this idea of, Jewish supremacy. There's no room for Christians or anybody else. Talk about the diversity of Israel. You worked with Christian organizations and Muslims and Arabs and Druze, and I'm sure others as well. Talk about the impact that makes on you and what that looked like from your perspective in Israeli society.
So, with your permission, Pastor Reed, I want to maybe leverage it to upgrade the question, because for me as an Israeli, I'm living in the northern part of Israel. We don't have a close hospital. I need to take my child 40 minutes ride. For Americans, 40 minutes is a piece of cake. For Israelis, it's like it's a lot. So the closest one is in the city of Tzfat, which is a very Jewish, ancient, traditional, important city. The second is Tiberias, which is also one of the most important cities in Judaism, also in the Christianity, but I'm talking about Judaism. But if I will take my children to the hospital there, the language that I will hear first is Arabic. And you know what? Who cares? You will not find an Israeli, a Jew, coming to the hospital and said, okay, no, Dr. Musa, I don't think that I like him. I want that Dr. Amir will treat me. It doesn't work like that. So for us, we are living together. We are serving. I remind you that we are serving in the army together. So we have the Druze, we have Muslims, we have Christians. We are visiting my friends in Majdal Sham, so Bukhata or Masadeh, the Druze guys. When we were evacuated, the CEO of the hotel was a Muslim guy from Turan. We are still friends. I came to his house to eat with him. We are talking a couple of times a month. So for us, the Israelis, well, it's something that we are feeling really okay with that. This is a part of us. This is a part of our society. We don't judge them. Again, of course, there is extremists everywhere, but the majority of the most, we don't care. What I can tell you about Operation Good Neighbor, which was for me an eye-opening, I didn't know a lot Christian people outside Israel. And as a Jew, you don't always know what is the feelings of Christians for Israel, whether they like us, whether they do not, the Jesus issue. And I found that there is so many supporters for the state of Israel. I work with two Christian organizations. Today I'm working with them again and again, and I learned to know pastors like you that have their people that support Israel. That, for me, when a team like that coming to Israel, it's something that's so exciting. And it was something that I said, I'm ashamed in my education system back in school that they didn't learn us, because you are thinking that, hey, I'm alone in the world. We're Jews, we're Israelis, we are all alone in the world. Okay, but we are strong, and God with us, who will defeat all of our enemies. And then I retired. This was my thought for 39 years. Then I became to know the Friendships Unlimited and FAI, and then we discovered that we have plenty of friends here in the world, and it was awesome. It's amazing. I can tell you that in some of my speaking tours in the US, well, I had the BDS that protest against me. You heard my story, and they were calling me a war criminal, those guys. I saw Christian students coming, not the Jews one. Christian students came, stand with me. For me, it was like going back to Israel, to my friends, and tell them, guys, we're not alone. We have a huge back supporting us, and it's amazing, encouraging. This is why I so love to meet Christian groups in order to share this appreciation. And please just continue to do that.
I love what you just said about your education. I mean, not that I love that that's the case, but I hear it all the time. And as someone who's been, a rabbi involved in Jewish-Christian relationships for so long, it's something that bothers me greatly that the way Jews are raised in the Jewish education system, in the Israeli education system, whether it's the religious system or the secular system, it doesn't matter. They're not taught anything about contemporary Christianity. The only thing that Jews are taught about Christianity is the history of Christian persecution of Jews that went back, back in the Dark Ages and during the Crusades and other times where Christians persecuted Jews. But in terms of the geopolitics of today, even in terms of the history of the Zionist movement, the very first Zionist Congress that Theodor Herzl organized back in the 1890s, there were Christian Zionists participating in the Zionist Congress all the way from the beginning. Heckler. Yeah, absolutely. William Heckler and some others who were with him. There were always Christians involved in the Zionist movement going all the way back. That's a whole other topic. Along this, the line of who our friends are, I'd like to move to a current events issue that you are better positioned than almost anyone to talk about, and I've been wanting to ask you about this. After the Assad regime fell and then Giuliani took over, we know that there was a lot of attacks against the Druze community that is near Israel. And the Druze were, they were fighting for themselves. Some Druze Israelis went across the border. It was a big, as you said, the Hebrew word balagan, it was a big mess. We haven't heard much about them recently. There were also some talk that the Druze community in southern Syria wanted to become part of Israel, or Israel was going to try to figure out ways to help them. What's the current state of affairs with the Druze community? Are they still under attack? Have they made peace with the Giuliani regime? What's the state of affairs with the Druze community in the north?
So I will try to explain it. And like I always say, the Middle East is not a TikTok. You cannot explain the Middle East in 10 seconds clip. I see people that coming and they saw like a guy that was doing like 30 seconds clip in Instagram and they became experts to the Middle East. I told them, guys, I'm learning 31 years and I still know nothing. So a little bit modesty, and we will try to explain what is going on. And again, it's complicated. So first, let's understand what the Druze in Syria, because there is also some claims in Israel that they are our brothers. So sorry to say that they ain't. The Israeli Druze are definitely my brothers. They are serving with me. They are fighting with me against my enemies. Trust them. I will put my life in their hands. Probably they will keep my life in the price of their lives. They are my true brothers. The Druze in Syria, and it's important to understand, they are loyal to the Assad government. The days I was operating on Operation Good Neighbor, Hezbollah special units were in their villages close to the border, collaborate with them, planning to hit us. This was the situation. Again, I don't blame them. This is the fact. The Druze, because they do not want to become like a separate nation, but a part of the nation, so they were choose a side. They were with the Assad government. Again, zero blame for them, but it is something that we have to understand. When the situation has been, but by saying that they were part with the Assad, it means they fought, because they were serving in the army, they fought against the Sunnite people, the Sunnite militias, which called the rebels, which some of them today is a part of the Ashara Giuliani army. So there is like a decades of hate between Druze and Sunnite. It goes back to the religious, how the Muslims, the Sunnite, reflecting to the Druze, and it goes back to the very close past about that they remember that they were a part of the government, that they defeated them and humiliate them. This is something that we know we have to understand as introduction. And by the way, I will say something else. The Druze in Syria are located in 3 different places. There is some that are very close to the Israeli border, literally living on the Israeli border on the other side. However, the biggest number of Druze living in a place called Suwaida. It's on the border with Jordan. It's 40 miles east to the Israeli border, so it's not so close. There is around 600,000. This is the majority of the Druze in Syria. In these 600,000, not all of them are agreed with the guy that leading and called to fight against the Giuliani. Some of them calling, let's be a part this government. So by explaining that, I think that it's a little bit more making understandable the situation. Now, in Syria, a guy that used to be the former commander of Al Qaeda, a jihadist, which his army is from a lot of jihadist people, become the president of Syria. Some will claim it's democracy. By the way, some will even claim that it is more democracy than in other countries in the Middle East. Why? Because 70% of Syrians are Sunnites. So if it will be elections, probably by a democracy way, he will win, because the majority, 10% is Alawite, 10% is Druze, 10% is Kurds, and no Sunni guy will fight against him. So even like in democracy, even we understand that it is not democracy, of course, but this is the claim that they will claim to the Western world. Hey, this is democracy. We are the majority, and the majority controls. Now, this guy, I remind you, Rabbi Pesach, before he slaughtered the Druze, he slaughtered the Alawite. Again, same situation. They have a lot of bad blood between them, and the world did nothing. They raped, murdered, burned around 2,000 Alawite. Nobody did anything. As a prize, he was called to meet with the president of the US, which said that he is a handsome and very smart guy. This is not the way to react in the Middle East, because from his point of view, Ashara, he realized that he can continue doing that. Instead of putting in a very strong red line, putting more sanctions, for example, and maybe by this way, he will be, let's say, more moderate. And then he continued to the Druze. In the Druze, because the relationship to the Druze, in Israel made an action. Israel attacked there. Israel passed a lot of messages, and he stopped. Whether the situation of the Druze today in Syria is better? No. And why? Because there is like a siege, a quiet siege. It means Ashara realized, and by the way, he is a very smart guy. You cannot be one of the most wanted guys to the CIA, FBI, with a $10 million price on your head and stay alive for years. He's a very smart guy. He realized that if he will do another massacre with the Druze, Israel maybe will do what we threat. It means that we will defeat him, we will bomb his castle. But what they are doing, they are treating it in the Middle Eastern way, simply with time. It means that if you are now a person living in Sweden, and for example, you are suffering from a cancer, you don't have hospital in Sweden. By the way, they destroyed it. What you need is to be treated, whether in Jordan, but Jordan closed the border. There is an agreement because this is two countries. So Jordan will not allow any Syrian resident, especially the Druze, to cross to Jordan without the permission of the Syrian authority. The Syrian authority will not allow it. Then you have the second choice, to go to be treated in your hometown, in Damascus, in Syria. Now, again, it's not the US, it's not Israel. You will arrive there. You will be able to cross the siege, to pass away all those random checkpoints, and to reach the hospital. The hospital will say, oh, you're from Sweden. Yeah, we really, really want to treat you. It will take another 6 months, go back to your home. And this is the situation. So the Druze situation is bad. What I claim to say that because they were presented as collaborators, and we talk about the meaning of collaborator, because they were like shooting that they are part of Israel, they were raising the flag of Israel. So some Israelis felt very, very good. This is not the way to react in the Middle East. When they did it, they drew themselves as collaborators with Israel. The situation is not simple, and Israel cannot help them now. We can supply some medical aid, but again, when there isn't military or terrorist activity against them, so they're suffering. And at the end of the day, I do believe that what they will need to do, what they will be forced to do, is to sign something with the authorities. However, they pay the price, and for the long range, they have been called collaborators. This is something that will not be forgotten very soon. So the situation, in my opinion, some of it is because Israel did some mistakes, is even worse than it was before.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, I have learned a bunch and thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We're coming to the end of our time, and our listeners need to get your book. They need to get in touch with you. They need to follow you. So let folks know where your website is, how they can get a hold of you, how they can follow along on social media.
So, like Rabbi Pesach said, first of all, if you want to read more, and I'm writing almost on a daily basis on jns.org, but the easiest way is to just follow my Instagram. It's very simple, like it's written here, LTC Ayal Dror, Lieutenant Colonel Ayal Dror. Then you will see more. The book, Embracing the Enemy, is on Amazon, and I really think that everyone need to read it, not because I wrote it, because first of all, it's humanity, and then it also teach you and giving you the tools to learn about hope, about trust, collaboration. So I do believe that it's a very interesting book, and I would love that people will read it and follow me. And I just want to say a huge thanks, both Rabbi Pesach and Pastor Reed, for having me in this show, and I'm really waiting to host your delegation next time on the northern border to see what you just heard, to see it on your own eyes, the borders.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to seeing you the next time I'm in Israel. Well, thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, rate, and share this podcast. Subscribe on Patreon. Come on over to Facebook, like our page, join our group, as we would love to connect with more and more of our shoulder-to-shoulder family. And we'll see you on our next episode.